Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Midnight Fright Cast. We are on episode 7 tonight. This is Tom, and with me is Patrick, and of course, Josh. Can you guys say hello?
Hello.
That was Patrick.
Hola.
That was Senor Josh.
Senor Josh.
Yeah.
And Greg is on sabbatical this evening. Where's Greg at again? Do we know?
He's in class because he goes to school.
Wait a minute.
He's
Greg?
actually getting an education.
I don't believe that because from what I know about Greg, he has no class.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he's going to class.
Well, that's why he's going to film school. Right.
So tonight, we are going to do a couple of topics. We are going to first talk about an interesting film called Audition. And this film was, Patrick actually has some of the stats on it. I believe it was done in 2002. Was that right?
1999.
Oh, 2000. This is 2000. Okay.
That may have been when it was released on DVD.
Oh, okay. And it is an interesting horror film. It is kind of a precursor to what we would see today as your torture porn, I would say. And it's not similar to what you'd see today on torture porn. And then the second half of the show, we're going to talk about classic horror music themes. Is that right? Music scores?
Music scores.
Or we could just talk about torture porn.
Or we just talk about torture.
Or we can just talk about porn.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
So if you're not familiar with this movie, just I'm going to give, Patrick's going to give some stats. But first, I'm going to give what's on the box here on a couple of the good reviews. New York Times.
Oh.
A great sick rush with a kicker on the level of The Vanishing. Okay, that doesn't really tell you much. Okay, we've got Los Angeles Times. Goes even further than the films of Italy's excruciating macabre Dario Argento. Last, Miyake is brilliant at transforming the mundane and familiar into something sinister and eerie. That last part is what I'm going to talk about when I open up.
All right. So a little bit about Audition. Here's the synopsis. A widowed television producer takes an offer to screen women at a special audition so that he can find a new wife. In his search, one particular candidate stands out. After engaging in a relationship with the young woman, he soon discovers that she is not all she appears to be.
Boom, 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 boom.
An audacious, unsettling Japanese horror film, Audition entertains as both a grisly shocker and a psychological drama. Tomato meter rating, 80%. Audience rating, matching that at 80%. IMDb rating, 7.2. And the Metascore, 69%.
Okay.
Those are all so high.
I like the movie. Now, it has been a long time since I've seen it, actually, because someone borrowed my version of it. And
Guilty.
I didn't get it back till tonight. But originally, my friend actually turned me on to this, and so I bought it. And what I wanted to talk about a little bit in terms of when I say torture porn, I guess I'm talking like Hostel.
Yeah. You're talking about Saul and
Saul,
Eli Roth stuff.
Yeah, where people are going to be doing some pretty horrible things. And one of the things that I remember when I watched it that I liked about it was, and probably what Josh hates about it.
Let's see.
It starts off what you would probably call slow.
It's the whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Keep going.
Okay. Whereas I would say it's building a story. Now, it's a horror movie, so if you're expecting something like Hostel or whatever, you're wanting something pretty fast. To me, it starts off more as a mundane kind of a Hitchcock thriller type thing, but it does take a while. And yes, it is foreign language film. But as you find out that this middle-aged guy has some ulterior motives, what he gets into the bargain is not what he thought. And it turns, I think, once it turns, I think it's pretty sinister. The other thing I like about it that's different from the other movies is you're not bombarded with constant editing in terms of visual editing. So it's more suspenseful, I think, in those terms. And you're not bombarded with sounds, which I don't mind that either for those movies. But it's just different that it's more... To me, it feels like I am that guy that it's happening to a little bit more because it's more realistic in that way. Yeah. That's what I like about it. Any thoughts just on those 2 points? Or
no, I agree with the long shots. I agree with
Right.
that it helped build up that tension just a little bit more, that they didn't have to rely on jump scares. They didn't have to do any of that. But once again, I don't think it was the type of movie that needed jump scares or anything like that. It was surreal enough that it really, to me, it drew me in, but it also probably raised more questions than answered.
Like, why is this happening? Why is she just crazy?
Not just that, but like, who's in the bag?
Oh, you see, I like that moment.
It's like, it's just a bag. Then you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's not gonna be just a bag.
You know
Then it
something.
starts moving, and then later on something comes out of it, and then also for me, it's answering the question of,
And the way she feeds the man in the bag is interesting.
right, and how much of this is real and how much of this is dream.
His dream or her dream, you think?
His dream.
Okay.
Because there are very specific points, and I'll get to those later, where I feel that the entire second half of the movie is a dream.
Huh. I may have to rewatch it looking at that. I felt like it's real. It is surreal. With the thing with the guy in the bag, did you feel like that distracted? To me, that just showed that she is capable of anything, and what's going to happen to our protagonist, who's not a very good guy protagonist.
And yet he is.
He's lonely. It's
He's
not like
extremely
trying
lonely.
to
He
do-
loved his wife
Yes.
incredibly. He's a very good father, even though that relationship, especially in Japanese culture was weird, because it was the son guiding the father instead of the father guiding the son. So I liked his character, but again, what he was doing and the premise for what he did was really shitty.
Yeah. What's your... Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
I'm enjoying sitting over here just watching y'all banter because no,
It just wasn't what you...
it
looking for.
you warned me that it was slow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I knew going into it that it was going to be slow. It for me it never moved.
Okay.
For me it was just like watching a snail run a race against a bunch of other snails. It just never did nothing ever, like for me, like nothing ever picked up. And so here's the problem for me in foreign films. I have to watch foreign films twice. Okay, I have to watch it to read it, and then I feel like while I'm reading it, I'm missing visuals.
Yeah, and that's important in a show like... Yeah.
Then I go back and I watch it a second time because now I kind of know what's going on. So I watch the visuals, and I didn't get to do that second watch, not because I didn't have time, but I really didn't want to. I don't think I could have made it through a second time, and it's not even this movie or its fault. Like, there's 2 foreign films I've made it through where I didn't have to watch it twice. Like, I was able to read it and watch it at the same time. And so I feel like I missed a lot in Audition, and you guys were talking about the dreams and everything. I just felt like, and this is maybe where I missed things, but for me, like, the timeline was all over the place in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, at some there's points I was like, what is going on? Like, there's a whole big like scene that goes on, and then he wakes up, and then he's back in that scene, and I was just like, I do not know what is going on in this movie at all. I was confused for quite a bit of it. The other thing that you warned me about was the how graphic it got with some of the things that she did to the guy, and I was kind of let down. You built it up like it was going to be this like really just, and it was awful. Don't get me wrong, it was awful. But I was like, well, was that it? So
See, I see what you're saying. I think what I meant to say on that was, to me, these kinds of things are scarier just because when, like I'm saying, when there's so much editing, for me personally, I don't get scared anymore. I'm just like, well, I can't even see what's going on.
I got you.
It's just noise and
Right.
and what I meant was the anticipation of what's going to happen to him.
I got you.
That to me was
Makes
what-
more sense.
But
Yeah.
you're right. It's not nearly in terms of what people do to each other in Hostel.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. But
But it's the fact that also that it's this seemingly demure girl that all of a sudden is
Yeah, but I mean, there's something wrong. You know,
Yeah.
there's something wrong. This is broken goods from the beginning.
you don't think that's that's what's. I mean, you do because you know it's a horror movie, but I don't think you would think that just from meeting anyone.
Yeah, but
who's got something off.
from starting to watch it, I didn't read any synopsis beforehand, so I didn't know that she was the one. I'm sitting there going, okay, who's going to be? Is he going to like find 5 or 6 different women and torture them or what?
Oh,
I didn't.
He might be the one.
Without
actually
knowing
good then.
anything about
That's
the
good.
movie. So that's why when I started watching her, I'm going, oh, she's the she's the one. So
and then I was like, could this have been more of a revenge film? But there's no revenge to take because.
But there
do
is
anything
the
to her
only thing
to
would
make her
be-
like this?
The only thing would be is that she really thought it was an audition.
No, but I took it even further because she supposedly had been molested and
Yeah.
scarred and all this other stuff. So
But
it's
not
not
by him, I don't think.
But
Not
I-
by him, by
but-
her by her
Right.
uncle,
yeah.
father,
Yeah.
whatever
It's
that is.
revenge on all men.
Yeah.
Well, that would
But-
explain the guy in the back, too.
Right, but they're talking about, okay, her manager ends up missing.
Yeah.
And supposedly 2 other people were missing that were in her life. So is she taking revenge out on any man?
Or maybe
Every man?
men with authority. Maybe.
Or men with authority?
Or men that
I
remind her of
really,
her-
Yeah.
to tell you the truth, I walked away from this movie thinking it was a complete statement on the way that men objectify women, especially
rewatch it.
Japanese women.
Yeah,
Yes.
And the consequences of that in a more modern society.
yeah.
Because I felt it was very much her saying, look, if you're going to commit to me, then you commit to me.
Right.
And when it doesn't happen, fatal attraction, here
Yeah,
we
yeah.
go.
And
Yeah,
she
yeah.
is committed to him.
Oh, completely.
I mean,
Yeah.
in her weird way.
Yeah, yeah.
Completely.
It's not a, yeah.
So I mean, overall, like it was like, did this movie know what it wanted to be, kind of thing for me? Like it's like it didn't know where it wanted to live.
I think probably the director definitely did because it was consistent from beginning to end. And that's why I'd like to see the director's comments on the DVD to see what he felt it was from the beginning.
Is that the only one who's on the comments?
I don't know. I haven't looked at the case. So,
Okay.
and I had written down myself, Tom, you had talked about this as
Yep, director.
torture porn, and I wrote that down and said, would this film be considered torture porn? But I've seen
Like today's
documentaries
standards, you
on torture porn, and that gets really, really bad.
Well, it depends how you define it, though, too. Are you talking about like this doesn't push the envelope in terms of like,
what we've seen in any other horror movie.
right? But again, I keep going back to Hostel. It becomes so unbelievable, I guess, the way that movie shot. I guess it just doesn't become as scary to me,
Right.
especially Hostel 2, which gets really ridiculous with the one woman bathing in that blood or whatever. Do you remember that
Yeah.
scene?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's when I was like, okay, now we're just trying to outdo each other as opposed to telling a story.
Well, and this could be, and I just looked it up. So this came out in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
This may have been kind of the precursor
That's what I was.
to
Right.
torture porn, if you want to call it that.
Well, who's
because
the director
Hostel
of
was-
Hostel again?
Eli Roth.
Right,
Eli
that-
Roth.
I
he
guarantee
did-
he's seen this movie.
I mean, he did that in 2005.
Right.
And I think Saw came
came
around after, easily after that.
Yeah.
So, it could have been the precursor to what became kind of torture porn here
like a
in the U.S.
bridge between
people,
psychological horror and just
people see that and go, okay, they did that. How much further can I go
sure.
without going completely off the cliff? And you see, I can totally see that scene at the end where she does what she does. We can give spoilers. This movie's almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
So-
Where she takes the razor wire and
Yeah.
starts cutting through his foot.
Yeah.
Ouch. And I get it. Like it's rough to watch, but if you've seen other things in other movies, that's barely even close to, like you said, describing Hostel. They do crazy things in that movie. But like I said, this could be the precursor to what was okay to do in those kinds of movies, I guess. So,
Do you think that she was seeking a victim or seeking a monogamous relationship, dedicated relationship?
I think it's stronger, and maybe the movie didn't do a good enough job about it. I think it's stronger that she goes in there not seeking a victim.
Okay.
I mean, if I was directing it, I would make that more clear.
I just don't know why out of the blue she would attend an audition.
Yeah.
She wasn't an actress. She used to be a ballerina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and so maybe they didn't develop that part of the story
Maybe
well enough
not.
to explain why she went to this particular audition, other than saying, I'm going to meet someone, and this is my, once again, referring back to Fatal Attraction.
I think it's scarier that if she's just opportunistic and she happens to find herself in a place where,
Did they?
I can do my crazy
Did they?
stuff.
Because I can't remember. Did they know what they were auditioning for?
They think it's for a commercial, commercial actor. Ugh.
To tell you the truth, I don't really know.
Okay.
I thought it was for like
Nope, film. It says for
yeah,
a film
for a film.
audition.
Yeah.
So how did that transition work then between you're auditioning for a film, but here's a surprise, this is what you really auditioned for? And
I think he ended up telling her, and I may be remembering this correctly, ended up telling her that somebody else got the part.
Yeah.
But he still found her,
Gotcha. Yeah.
intriguing.
But he was doing the whole thing to find a woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think he would have done it if it wasn't suggested by his creepy friend?
I don't know.
I honestly don't think he would have gone and done that.
I think he would have just
stayed.
stayed.
A victim.
I think he just would have stayed a widower.
He seemed like he was very happy, just him and his son living together. He was more worried about his son finding love or whatever.
So you can blame it on the son then, because the son told him, you need to go out and do something about this.
I totally blame it on the kid.
Yeah.
Okay, we just have to mention the feeding. Because I found that pretty horrifying.
Remind me, Tom, because again, it's been a little while.
So the guy in the bag she doesn't feed him.
Yeah.
Well, she does, but she makes it so he's very hungry. And then she regurgitates food into a bowl.
Yeah.
And when she gives it to him, he could care less. He's so hungry.
Yeah.
That to me, that kind of stuff, I don't know what it is about that kind of stuff, scares me more than lots of other things. I don't know why. The depravity of someone doing that, and then knowing that guy must have not eaten for days in order to lap it up like that. It was just, that's hard for me to watch.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but you saying that brings me back to the question, who's the guy in the bag? Who do you think it is?
I don't think we know.
Just some random guy, or could it have been one of the people that he talked about, the
Like,
manager,
Oh, I see what you mean. One of the missing guys?
right.
Not the guy's friend that set up the...
Yeah, not him.
No.
Well, it was pretty obvious it wasn't
And
him.
it doesn't explain why he's in the bag ever?
I think that's just
it's just
he's her pet.
okay.
That's kind of how I got.
That's
what
the way.
I got
That's
out
the
of
way
it.
I read it.
See, I just wish it's things like that I wish, like, I don't need to be spoon fed, don't get me
I
wrong.
know, but
like,
maybe or
I would like to know, why is that guy in that bag?
Well, and also being a foreign film, part of me was going, is this symbolism or is this real?
oh, I thought
Yeah.
it was real. I thought it was
And
one of the
I think it's real as well.
the manager people or whatever.
However.
And yeah, I don't know. That's what I assumed was just that it was a pet. I mean, she's obviously clearly insane. You had final thoughts?
Just a couple things. There was some things that make me think, going back to one of my first comments, thinking that this was 2/3 his dream. Because there's things that happen in there that I'm sitting there wondering, how does he get away with? Because there was a part where he molested his son's girlfriend. And how did he quite get away with that? And then, so the way I was reading it is that everything was kind of from his point of view. Her sitting and waiting for the phone to ring was his idea of what she's doing. She's so intrigued with me that she's just sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking, are these all his interpretations? So then they go away.
Well, he's pretty sick then.
Oh, he's extremely sick. So
that's the take.
they go away on this vacation together. And it's not until he falls asleep that we start seeing this really weird shit happen. Mm-hmm. And that happens until he wakes up and he said, oh, okay, everything's fine. Goes back to sleep. Weird shit happens again all the way to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So there's part of me thinking, is this all a dream of him feeling guilty about what he's done and what could happen to him because of what he's done.
We need to look at that director commentary.
Yeah, I mean, it just...
Yeah, that all fits.
There's also a director interview on here too.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Select scene, director commentary, director interview, director introduction. So, okay.
So, yeah, I mean, this movie intrigued me more than a lot of them that we've seen in a while.
Josh, you could have chosen Spanish subtitles.
Yeah, I don't think that would have gone as well either. So I'll mention the two movies. I know we're talking about this movie, but the only two movies, foreign films I've ever been able to get through, just reading it and being able to watch the film, is Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, and I just watched Train to Busan, and it's like fire. So. I don't know. Usually, foreign films that I have seen, it's rough for me. I have to watch them twice. So, but all that made sense. The dream stuff that makes perfect sense to me. When I was watching it and nodding off, I was like,
well, and that also kind of explains some of the weird jumps when we were sitting on, am I in the past? Am I in the future? Am I in the now? Things like that,
crazy.
because it kind of followed the timeline of how dreams happen. So it would be, that's why I'm saying I can't wait to see these commentaries to get his interpretation of what it was. So so wrapping it up, Josh, what were your thoughts? Final thoughts.
I would see it. I'm glad I watched it. I had that, Tom gave it to me, and I'm glad that, and I had let it sit for a while, so I'm glad we chose it to cover on the Frightcast, but I don't think it's a second watch film. I would recommend it to people who like horror films and who like foreign films, because they would enjoy this. But again, it's not a second watch for me.
Compare it to Grudge, Ring, the Japanese versions.
Even those I would
put ahead of this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
me.
My last thoughts are, I'm just going to say this. While the theme of the movie I felt was the objectification of women and the possible retribution, I truly believe that the moral of the movie is just don't date creepy people.
But how do you know? Like, how do you know?
Oh, once you start seeing things, you say, hey, sayonara, you know.
All right.
Tom, you going to wrap it up with your final thoughts on it?
No, my final thoughts is just that I like the bridge of the psychological thriller moves into horror, and then what we have now today, which is more just like Josh was saying, we don't have that first 45 minutes. It's just we get right into it. And so I think it's just an interesting film in that way, that it kind of bridges those two areas.
I will, in my defense also, or in the defense of the movie, actually, not my defense, I have very little patience. My patience and my attention span is crazy short. So if it doesn't rocket fire like right into my brain and I have to wait, I go off on brain tangents, and the movie just doesn't work for me. So,
no, I myself wrote down that it was a slow burner, and it took forever to get going, but once it did, it captivated me the entire time.
And I like those kind of movies. I'm the same way with you. I have a horrible attention span, but it's the exact opposite. If I start seeing so much editing, I'm bored to tears. Okay. And you've lost me, because it's like there's no more story. Now it's just show me images. And that's where I get kind of lost. But this is a little slow in the beginning. I will admit. It takes a while to figure out what's going on. So, well, cool. That was a good conversation. I'll let Patrick was it your idea for the second?
Oh yeah, bit? we can go into that. I don't want to start though. But I will
why don't you introduce the section?
Is there a segue from Audition to this?
Yeah, I don't think there isn't.
Well, some people audition for singing, and singing there's a lot of music.
Oh, no, I will make a segue.
I can't wait.
Okay, it's not brilliant, but I'll make one.
We'll take it.
One of the things I liked about this film, that was different about this film as well, is the score. The score is not, again, it's I don't know if subtle's the right word, but it's more about presenting a mood as opposed to like, here's a shocking moment. You know, it's not, it's probably boring in a way that way, but it's more like a psychological thriller.
Yeah. Well, speaking of scores, Tom.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, one thing I want to add to this whole thing is, and I'm probably going to mess up your segue here.
That's okay. I lost it anyway.
There was a remake of Audition in 2006.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, an English version of it.
That I would actually watch.
So I don't know where it's available or anything like that, but I did see that there was.
I'm intrigued to see that.
I am too.
It might help.
Very interesting.
But they're never as good. They're never as good as the original.
They usually aren't.
And it's a cultural thing too, so that's going to be different than this.
That's a really good point.
So
that's a really good point.
I mean, yeah. So
speaking of scores,
speaking of scores,
did you guys get see the score of last night's basketball game? Speaking of scores,
so tonight the topic to cover is, I guess, popular or favorite theme songs. Is that right? Or scores?
Yeah.
Sorry, scores from your favorite horror films. As usual, I wrote down 5, and Patrick wrote down 900,000. So
I've got
we
like 3.
might let him go first, just so he can cover.
I had 900,000. I rounded it down to 10.
He'll cover all of ours.
He's going to cover.
Oh, I think so.
He's going to cover all the ones that I wrote down. Don't cheat off my sheet. Shit.
So why don't you guys go with
over.
why don't you guys go with your list first? I can scratch it off my list and I can add mine on. One thing I got to say about film scores though is film scores make or break a movie.
Yeah, and
they do.
Yeah, and you sent a message out the other day.
Oh, there's a movie I watched called Crazy 8.
Yeah.
I watched it and the score ruined the film because it was counteractive to what was happening on the screen.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe they sat back and said that was good.
If you watch a movie, some of these movies even on our list, without the score, I don't even think they're half as scary. I think that score is what, builds a lot of the tension anyway.
Exactly.
So, do you want to start, Tom, since you have 3?
I only have like 3.
You can cover 3 of my 5, and then
not. I don't think this is an important subject, but I forgot we were covering this one today. Oops. So I'm going off just my knowledge of films. Okay, well, obviously there's Hitchcock movies. Most famous being Bernard Herrmann's Psycho.
But you are a huge fan of Hitchcock. Every time we talk to you on the Frightcast, I'm pretty sure you've brought up Hitchcock every single time you've been on. So I'm pointing that out.
I just rewatched Rope last night. Hitchcock used him a lot, and obviously with Psycho, it's the famous. But if you look at the whole film, it really does do what Patrick was talking about, and sets up each mood is different. So each scene that has a different mood. So if you don't know the movie, when she's stealing stuff and she's trying to get away in the car, you think it's an action adventure type, and then when it turns into horror, it's totally different. And he also scored, I was saying, Brian De Palma got him, I believe, for Carrie, and a couple other movies. So that's a famous one. I do mention Hitchcock too much.
I'm sorry. Since you brought up Psycho and the music for Psycho, did anybody watch Bates Motel?
I started it and it's really good. I just haven't.
Did any of that music carry over that you can remember, or is there any like? It's got the same feel, I guess, as Psycho, score wise.
It does. They don't have. I haven't gotten farther along in it where they have the shocking music.
Yeah.
But the other stuff I believe does. Now that you've mentioned that, the Exorcist TV series does use stuff from the movie.
Yeah.
That's another pretty classic score. And of course I'll mention Rosemary's Baby.
Of course.
I love the score for
Hitchcock
that.
and Rosemary's Baby. That is Tom's cup of tea.
I love the score for that. It's this creepy, it's actually her singing it. And
the name of the composer is Christophe Komeda
for
Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby. Okay.
Also known as Christopher.
Of course, he's not famously known for this, but John Williams' Jaws score, of course, has to be in there.
Yeah.
He
You
did.
sunk my battleship.
Oh shoot.
You got 3 of mine.
And
3 for 3.
like I said, I didn't do my homework, so I'm trying to think of movies I've seen recently. Maybe I'll jump in later. I just can't think of the composers. But anyway.
Yep. I only wrote down 3 of the 5 of the composers because I got lazy. You mentioned The Exorcist, but I'll bring it up again. That's on my list. The Exorcist is a classic theme from, I'm pretty sure you can, anybody can really hear it, horror fan or not, and point it out. So that was on my list. Mike Oldfield did that. The theme from A Nightmare on Elm Street. I always like it. That always kind of sets a good mood. I'm gonna bring up. You brought up Jaws. That was on my list. Because again, I don't even think you have to be a fan to hear that and just know what it's from. John Carpenter, Halloween.
Yeah.
That's just.
And he writes his own.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've heard John Carpenter's Lost tapes, but it's a whole bunch of themes that he wrote that he's never used, and they're all just crazy good.
And I know Escape from New York isn't a horror movie, but he did the music for that too.
I think he does.
He does all of the stuff, yeah, and that's pretty memorable.
And Halloween, if you watch all the Halloween movies, it changes. It changes that much, but it changes in every single Halloween movie. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then the last one I wrote down isn't horror. It's I don't know. But the theme song to Stranger Things will always.
Is that an 80s type?
It's the Netflix original Stranger Things.
I love the
Yeah.
series.
But he's asking, does it sound like 80s music?
It's that synth. It's that synth.
Synthesizer.
Okay.
sound.
Yeah. It's I mean, that every time I hear that, it gets me jazzed to watch that. I mean, that show already is good, but that theme song is crazy good. So,
That show is 98% good.
yeah, I bet you if you give me a second, I can guess the other 2% that you don't think is good. But I'm not going to mention her name.
Yeah. You
She's
don't wanna upset them.
she's been through enough.
You talking about
Winona Ryder.
who was just drunk at the awards?
She was drunk, stoned, or just mentally insane. I don't know
That
which.
poor
Matthew
girl.
Modine was literally
Holding her up.
That
It
poor
was like,
girl.
what are you doing?
And that
Come
guy
on.
gave such a brilliant speech,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was totally. I stopped listening and just started watching her, and I'm going. God
Now his speech
dang
is
it."
a meme.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's too bad.
This incredible, powerful speech is a meme. But
Hey, well, we're on composers. Has nothing to do with horror necessarily. In terms of what we were talking about story-wise,
Yeah.
Ennio Morricone is the best of all time. He does all the westerns.
Oh yeah.
and he's on my list because he did The Thing.
Oh, he did do the thing. Okay.
Yep, he and John Carpenter together worked on The Thing.
He is phenomenal.
He is phenomenal. Okay, you guys actually knocked off about half my list. So I've got to talk about, first of all, Tom, you mentioned John Williams for Jaws. One great thing about John Williams and what he does and his contemporaries is thematic composing. And what that means is almost every character has their own song.
Ennio Morricone does the exact same
You
thing.
know who's entering
Yeah.
just by the music.
Yeah.
He's incredible. My wife and I talk about this all the time with the effects music have on movies. So with mentioning my wife and that, I would be remiss to not mention Alien with Jerry Goldsmith working on the original Alien movie, and then James Horner working on Aliens. Very powerful. Some people may disagree with me on this one, but the score for Hellraiser.
Yeah, I just watched that the other night. Randomly, I just watched
remember
Hellraiser off Netflix, and yeah,
And I don't know if this guy's done anything else. I'm sure he probably has, but Christopher Young for Hellraiser. Friday the 13th was somewhat thematic throughout the movie, with Charles Bernstein doing that. This one, I don't consider this horror, but it's still Walter Carlos, or Wendy Carlos after the gender recorrection, Clockwork Orange.
Tom's face.
And James Bernard, Hammer Horror Films. He did tons of music for Hammer Horror, most notably Horror of Dracula. If you heard that, you know what movie you know.
Okay.
And that's a little bit older, but he was a staple for Hammer.
That's okay. That's older.
Yeah. So that's my list, in addition to all of yours.
We smashed that topic out really quick tonight.
We sure did. I mean,
but you know, it was a topic that I was I'm always curious about, especially I've been wanting to talk about that for a few weeks now, but it works even better because you brought up the whole music being able to ruin, or the sound score being able to ruin a movie,
right?
Which I 100% completely agree with.
Yeah.
So
I watched a documentary with Spielberg and Williams, and he actually films his stuff and then sends it to Williams.
yeah,
So that's how good Williams is he's able to take the story and the characters and make it happen.
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh, here's, a bunch of music I got, some ideas I have.
yeah.
Yeah, I love watching him compose, because he sits there with, he's watching on a big screen, writing the music as he's watching it. It's just amazing to watch him work.
Yeah, that's the way to. I mean, obviously, the way to do it really is you score to, compose to the film, so you get that feeling to it. But a lot of films now also, when you go watch extra features, touch at least a little bit now on the music of the movie. And you get an idea of what that composer was thinking or feeling while they were scoring the film. So it's becoming a bigger part, I think, of film than, or at least something to talk about more than I think it used to be. So I am getting that it's time to do plugs signal. So Tom, do you have any plugs you wanna drop?
Yeah, I want people to come see my reading of the Murder Mystery Monster Mayhem of Manchester Manor. That will be April 9th, Sunday, 2 p.m. at the Haymarket Theater.
Oh, you're doing it at the Haymarket?
Yep.
Okay, cool. We have a few things. We're on Midnight Fright Films on Facebook. We obviously are on the Midnight Frightcast on Facebook. You can go to Midnight Fright Films and find us all of our stuff on Midnight Fright Films. Our YouTube page. We're on the gram of Insta. And anything else that I missed?
No, I think that's pretty much it. We're going to be moving into our next project here relatively quickly.
Yes.
Our entry into the Prairie Lights Film Festival 2017. And really looking forward to getting started on that. I know we're jonesing to start shooting.
Yes.
We're going to be hitting our locations, doing some scouting there, walking through.
Yeah, we're a week out from walking through the location.
Yep.
And then hopefully that read-through in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
So it came along very well. It's coming along very well.
So
And
far,
the location is the same place, right?
yes.
Should we plug them again or not?
The
Haymarket Theater.
Yeah. So said thanks to Patrick because he got actors to come together very quickly, and thanks to Tom for bringing the locations.
And to Jason
Together.
for
And
actually
Jason,
making the location happen. So,
This is gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun,
Yep.
fun shoot. So
all right. I think that's it. Tom,
Yeah.
you want to wrap it up, or who's going to wrap it up?
Go wrap, Tom.
Because
Wrap to us.
Josh and I have proven we suck at wrapping up the ends of these podcasts.
wrap it up.
On
take it.
behalf of Josh and Patrick, this is Tom. And thanks for joining us at Midnight Frightcast, episode 7. Stay tuned. We'll be having another one in about a week.
Peace out, Boy Scout.